you for the invitation, and I'm a little confused. I don't know what language to use, whether to go in Malayalam or in English. So I probably will end up doing a bit of both. So I started by yesterday saying that one of the arguments that we need to reach, or one of the movements that we have to sort of make now, is a move from culture to civilization. And what I meant, I'm going to elaborate a little more about it, what I meant by that. As I said, most of our work, say for the past 25 years or 30 years, has been under the ambit of something called culture studies. Under the umbrella or ambit of culture studies. And what culture studies does, and I'm not saying that we are going to move away from culture studies. I'm saying that we are not going to lose the lessons, the hard-earned lessons that we learned by doing something called culture studies. But what I'm also saying is that it is probably about time that we make a larger argument, a civilizational argument. And I sort of said this yesterday and left it dangling there. And yesterday itself there were comments about Huntington's notion of clash of civilization, etc., which has been a problematic term. One of the things which I probably will also play around is with this notion of the clash of civilization, to basically say that the problem with Huntington's thesis probably is that it talks about two civilizations, one real and one imagined. To say that there is no Western civilization. There have been civilizations. We can even say there is an Islamic civilization, there are many civilizations, but there has never been anything called Western civilization. In fact, that is unreal, it's an imagined, that's a creation. But it is there. So what I'm trying to do is to, why it is there and why it is not there. How did it come about? So probably that will what I will be sort of hinging what I'm saying on. So, if you think about the notion of Islamophobia, what are the things which quickly come to mind in a global, international context? Definitely Crusades, definitely the Ottoman. All these things have been already mentioned yesterday as well as it will keep on happening. I should also confess what I'm trying to do is to do something different. In a topic like this, everybody is saying the same thing. So, how do you say something different? So in a little bit, I may be a little provocative, tongue-in-cheek kind of argument I'll be making. So Crusades, Ottoman Khilafat, what are the quick images? Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, on an international scale. More at home, national scale, what are the images of Islamophobia, creation of something could be possibly Islamophobic. I think yesterday one of the speakers was asking this question, whether are we taking a global context and applying it to an Indian and a Kerala context? Is there actually Islamophobia? So if you look at the Indian context, we probably we should start with the Ghaznīs invasions, Somanatha temple, etc. So Ghazni, the Somanatha, the Mughal, the Maratha conflict, etc. Closer at home, we have this whole period which I would call 1498 to 1663, which is a crucial period in the history of India, particularly Malabar. We all know what is 1498, the so-called discovery of India, Vasco da Gama, etc., etc. What is 1663? 1663, this period is crucial because even William Logan calls this period as the Portuguese period. And Logan goes on to characterize this period as the Portuguese period, and he actually calls it the most violent time in the history of probably humankind. I will come back to the 1498-1663 divide. Now, what is also crucial for Logan says that this is immediately followed by the Dutch period. After the Portuguese period, which is a long period, 1498 to 1663. It is immediately followed by the Dutch period. And Logan says Dutch period was comparatively, relatively peaceful. So how did the sudden violence of trade rivalry between European powers suddenly become a peaceful area? And the answer probably is something which happened in Spain, Portugal, etc. Queen Isabel. I mean, people who have read Mamdani's book probably knows the whole history of what happened in Europe at that time. But what is also probably crucial is that what happened there, because of whatever trade, fight, war, etc., there was negotiation, probably Malabar was handed over to Dutch by the Portuguese. Portuguese suddenly withdraw from this whole area. So there is a way in which a part of negotiations was actually the selling, the giving of Malabar to somebody else. Now, this period is also important, 1498-1663, because two crucial books happen around this time. One written in Arabic, one written in Malayalam. Which is the Arabic one, most of us know, Tufat al-Mujahideen, which is a jihadist book, a call for killing Europeans, particularly Portuguese. Written by Zainuddin, Yemeni, migrant, not even a Malabari, written in Malabar, in Arabic, etc. We probably know a little more about this. The other book probably is a little lesser known, which is around 1660. I'm not very sure about the date, but 1660, some around that period. The book is called Vartamana Pustakam. Vartamana. This is also an interesting and important book. What is this book all about? So one is by a Muslim calling for jihad. The other one is by a Christian. And what is this Christian's book all about? It is a record of a journey undertaken from Kerala to all the way to Rome. And what is the point of this journey? The point of this journey is to ask Roman Church the permission to be different. To be different. To have a different kind of church in Malabar or in Kerala. And of course the permission is denied and the whole Syrian Christian story hangs there. So I will not go into the Syrian Christian part now. So to continue with this, 1498 to 1663, a crucial period. Then we have the 1836 to 1921, which is widely known as the Mapla uprisings, revolts, the period of that. I'm again going back to the things which are of national and regional interest. Ghazni, 1498-1663, 1836 to 1921, partition, Pakistan, Kashmir. See, these are the images that we have of something which could be used to substantiate an Islamophobia in a national Indian context. Now, I'm going to do a little bit on this Malabar part. How do we understand Malabar? I don't know how many of you are familiar with this book by John Harris called The First Firangis. The First Firangis. And in that book, he talks about Kunjali Marakar, etc., the non-histories for most of us from this part of the world. But what he also says is that, let me go back a little, which is the most busiest, dense, human populated place in the world right now? It is New York. New York is a medley of races, colors, languages, etc., etc. And Harris says, Malabar was the New York of that time. Malabar was the New York of that time. So Malabar then belongs to a different kind of cultural geography. And I already mapped a little bit about the conflicts which are happening about Malabar, way away in Spain, Portugal, etc. And yesterday, this was also mentioned, the move from a British or a European empire to a new kind of American empire. And I'm basically underlining the work by Hart and Negri, which talks about this new form of empire. And Hart and Negri goes on to say something very crucial, which I found useful to understand. When we talk about Islamophobia, when we talk about terrorism, when we talk about fundamentalism, what Hart and Negri says is that the mistake we probably do is to essentialize Islam. To understand Islam as something, to orientalize Islam, to essentialize Islam. So they say that we have to understand fundamentalism or even terrorism as not pre-modern, not as revival, but as postmodern phenomena. Terrorism is actually a postmodern phenomenon. It is a postmodern response, a contemporary response to a new kind of geopolitics. Now, I want to put it all there before I proceed with this. Probably I'll take another 10 minutes. So, essentialism, Orientalism, and of course, what is also a part of the whole package, which earlier was also talked about, the whole notion of othering. And this was also, I'm just giving an overview. This was also mentioned earlier, the change from communism to Islam. And one of my best examples of this is actually from Ziauddin Sardar, which I keep quoting again and again. Ziauddin Sardar's story about in Desperately Seeking Paradise, the book called Desperately Seeking Paradise. Ziauddin Sardar talks about the collapse of the Berlin Wall. In the 1980s, the Berlin Wall is being taken apart and it is telecast live. And everybody is celebrating. The whole world is celebrating this finally this wall which is separated is being taken apart. And they're all gathered in Ziauddin Sardar's house and having a party, eating, talking, clapping. When the bricks are taken apart, clapping, etc. Suddenly, Ziauddin Sardar says, his wife stood and asked, "Who will be next?" And suddenly there is a complete silence in the room. Because they all realize at the same time, it will be us. It will be Islam against which now they are going to turn. So the notion of essentialization, Orientalism, othering, communism. I should also say this when we talked about Kashmir, Islam, or Gandhi, also that imagine Gandhi's notion of other. Gandhi has a very sophisticated notion of other. It is not a simplistic one. When asked this question by Gandhi, if I'm talking from memory, what will you do if your daughter marries a Muslim? And Gandhi's answer was quite plain and simple, like any father probably would say. He said that if my daughter marries a Muslim, she has no place in my house. She can stay here, right? So where will she stay? She can go to Pakistan, right? This is Gandhi's notion of father. Gandhi says that in my house, my rules. In your house, I don't have any problem, you follow your rules. So this is what actually Indian nationalism achieved, to create Pakistan as an other, as a neighbor. This is actually a part of Gandhian notion of othering, which is a very peaceful, which is a very accommodative other. It is accommodative. How accommodative? Only as a neighbor, not inside, not internally. So, if we think about all these notions of Islamophobia, etc., the birth, I started from crusades, etc., go on, I would say that, no, this is not where the story starts, not even with crusades. The Islamophobia probably starts way back, probably 11th century. Crusades come a little later, 11th century. What happened in 11th century? To say that, I had to think of a different kind of time scale. I had to talk about what happened in 1066. In world history, what all happened in 1066. One of the crucial things which happened, people who have studied English literature knows, is something called the Norman Conquest. What is Norman Conquest? Norman Conquest is basically French colonizing the British. It is a French invasion or conquest of Britain. So it is actually a colonization. It's an internal colonization where French take over the English. But around the same time, in a little apart from the Europe, somewhere in the Mediterranean, this is also a kind of a story in a sense. There used to live a king, a Muslim king. 11th century, when French and Europe is fighting, trade war, all kind of things are happening there. There used to be a peaceful kingdom ruled by a Muslim king. And the main religions in that part, there were three religions who were co-present in the same part: Jews, Christians, Muslims. All right? And imagine that place. That place is the birth of three of the revealed religions: Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Actually, is born somewhere there. From there it springs. So it is the birthplace of three religions. And we have a king who is ruling the place with three major religions which has been engaged in a clash of civilizations, etc. But in this context, they are all living peacefully. In fact, it is said, Mahabali Nad, it's a time like that. No crime, no theft. It's a peaceful, harmonious time. So the question is, how was it achieved? The answer is actually quite simple. Because there were people who would do some crime, sin, etc., crime, etc. What was the punishment? They were punished according to their religion. I'm saying this also in the context of Uniform Civil Code. Not a uniform code, but each their code. So if a Christian commits a crime, they will be punished according to the Christian norms. A Muslim according to the Muslim rules, a Jew according to Jewish rules. And this is supposed to be one of the most peaceful time. Then what happened to this place? How did we lose this place? The story goes like this. So merchants come to the king and beg him. What is happening with the trade? The trade is happening, but they are only supposed to trade in a fair manner. No profit. You can already see what I'm getting at. I'm talking the story of capitalism. So there is no profit here. There's only a fair profit. So the merchants, traders come to the king and say, see, look, but this is not possible. I have 10 ships. In the last trade, 9 ships were shipwrecked. I only 1 ship which survived. I had to make profit. I had to cover the loss of the 9 ships by selling what I got in 1 ship. So please allow us to overcharge. Please allow us to trade. It's a whole new thing is developing. And the king is very unhappy. He says, no, I cannot allow that. The trade does not belong to Judaism, Christianity, Islam. There's no particular code or whatever there. So he says, I cannot allow. And after much pleading, petitions, etc., he finally tells them, okay, you do one thing. Outside the outskirts of the city, I'll give you a place. Right? An outpost. Outpost of civilization. Not within the civilization, you cannot do this. Outside the civilization, you can trade. Right? There you can sell, people will come there and trade, etc. There could be trade rules, whatever is mandatory, can happen then. Then the story is, as we have bypass, right? What happens when you have bypass? A city is so crowded that you create a bypass. Then what happens? City moves there. And this is what happened. So outpost of civilization became the center of civilization. This is the birth of capital. So, in a way, I am also saying that Islamophobia is justified because we are different. What Islam does not allow is to live privately one way and publicly in another way. The whole notion of the divide between public and private is something that Islam doesn't agree. Islam refuses to budge. It says, no, you cannot do one thing in private and another thing in public. There is a continuity. There's not a schism. There's not a division. There's a continuity between these two realms. I'm not saying that we don't have a public and a private, we do. But there will be a continuity between these two dimensions, the two realms. They cannot remain separated, completely separated, where you do practice one and do something else. The best example probably is burqa itself. The state could say, you want to wear parda burqa, you go to your house and do that. Not in public. No. It extends. Or whether we're talking about bank, we will have banks without interest, right? So there is a different level in which Islam engages with the capital. And this is basically what I've been trying to get at, to say when I say we have to make a larger civilizational argument. And that is actually the way to move forward from this. Yeah, I probably have something more to say. So then to say that, to provocatively proclaim that, in a sense, Islam represents the real civilization. Thank you, I'll stop.